Good afternoon and welcome to James Franklin's weekly football press conference. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach and then we'll go to Mark Brennan.
So real quick, like always, I want to thank everybody for being on and covering Penn State football. Some quick review of the Wisconsin game, the positives. I thought it was, impressive. We were able to go on the road in a very hostile environment, noisy, rainy, 11 a.m. kick. And I felt like we were prepared for all of it. I felt like our guys willed it to happen with their mentality and approach. I thought we played really good complementary football. Obviously, we won the turnover battle and the explosive play battle, the two most important statistics in football. Offensively, what we were able to do in the second half, obviously, was a real positive. We got to be able to do that for 4 quarters. Obviously, punting, I think, had a huge impact on the game. If you look at offense compared to offense in the first half, you look at field position, drive start, it really probably doesn't make sense if you don't look at punting and how that played a part in the game. So on that note, congratulations to Jordan Stout being the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. He had a huge impact, kickoffs and special teams, and punt. And then I thought our defense played championship-level defense all day long, so that was great. Opportunities for growth, obviously consistency on field goals and PATs. That snap, hold, and kick. A couple times there we did not have, the laces. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we got to make the kick, but it's more than just a kick. It's protection. I think that showed up obviously with our block kick. It's the protection, it's the snap, it's the hold, it's the kick, all of it. So we got to get that cleaned up. 2-minute defense. You get a turnover, get down immediately. If they get a strip there, they get a new first down. We got to get down immediately. And obviously we can do a better job of defending our sidelines, especially when they don't have timeouts available. So that's something we'll talk about this week. And then 4-minute offense, so that we don't even put our defense in that position and we can end the game on our terms. So that was the general notes. For Ball State, obviously got a lot of respect for Coach New and what he's been able to do there at Ball State. You're talking about 21 starters returning with 16 super seniors. I think that's the 4th most in the country. 16 super seniors coming back from a MAC championship team. So it's going to be a tremendous challenge. We look forward to the opportunity. Kevin Lynch on offense is doing a really good job. I think Coach New obviously has an influence there as well, but those guys do a great job offensively. You look at what they were able to do. And then Tyler Stockton, their defensive coordinator, someone that I've been tracking for a long time, I think has got a real bright future, in the industry. And I know he's got some connections with Coach Dex as well, Coach Poindexter. So got a lot of respect for him. And then our special teams coordinator, Coach Doherty, is doing a good job for him as well. So it's going to be a real challenge. It's a tremendous opportunity. We just want to get better. We found a way to be 1-0 last week. We got to improve this week. We got to correct some things and clean some things up and then do everything we possibly can to be 1-0 again. And then look forward to getting back together with you after the game.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247 with Fight on State, and then we'll go to Greg Pickle.
Hey, James, thanks for your time today.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, did you have a chance to take a closer look at the targeting call on Ellis Brooks? And, what are your thoughts? And more broadly speaking, how tough is it to teach tackling now with the way the rules are written? A kid could, it looks like, be ejected for incidental contact. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you have a combination of things there that you brought up. So you have the reduction in tackling in practice mandated by rules, from an NCAA perspective. So that makes it challenging. And then you have the rules of how targeting is really being officiated. Where I think it's changed is there really was not targeting on a ball carrier unless you used basically the top of your helmet, or use your helmet as a weapon, kind of like the old spearing rules. I understand what we're trying to do, and making sure we do everything we can to protect the student athletes, number one, and protect the sport, number two, as well. I think there's just going to come a point where, I don't know what you tell the defensive guys. Specifically to Ellis's, the thing that we're going to do a better job of is making sure that our guys are wrapping up and looking the tackle in, because you can have contact with the face mask and maybe just the front of your helmet. But whenever you turn your head down, and when you throw a shoulder, which is what he was doing there, in my opinion, when you throw a shoulder, it's just natural for the head to turn. But if you use proper tackling fundamentals, that should take care of that. I think it's one of those calls that could go either way. If they didn't call it, I think people would understand that. I think if you do call it, you're essentially making some changes in the way the rule had been officiated in the past when it came to a ball carrier. So, it's one of those calls. I get it. If I was wearing the official's hat and not being biased as the Penn State head football coach, I probably would not have called it. But I get it. I get it for the reasons I stated before. Protecting the student athletes and protecting the game. But I do think there's going to need to be probably at the end of the season, a discussion where we get coaches and officials and the AFCA involved and really just sit down and talk it all through with the doctors as well, and make some decisions, because, I know last night, I think there was a bunch of targeting game calls in that game last night. I think was between Louisville and Ole Miss. Thank you. There was a bunch of targeting calls that were similar. And then the other thing that's going to be interesting is, are we ever going to call it on the offensive guy? So you see offensive guys lowering their helmet, and I've yet to see that call. So it's interesting. I'm not criticizing. I'm not arguing, but it's a challenging thing right now for our game, and I think there's going to have to be continued discussions about it, if that's fair. I hope that's fair.
Greg Pickle, Blue White Illustrated, then Ben Jones.
Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
Good, Greg. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, thanks. Jake Pinniger was your primary kicker last year. He did travel. He said he was available, but he didn't handle the kicks he had a year ago. Was that just simply a matter of Stout beating him out during camp with everything you track, or is it something else? And what is your plan with him moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's more than a fair question. It really came down to camp. I think, I say this to you guys all the time, and I don't know if you guys always necessarily believe me. But each position, whether it's a starting quarterback or a starting kicker, you compete for it every year. You compete for it every camp. You compete for it every week. And we track everything, literally every kick, the consistency, the accuracy, the snap, the hold, the location, every competitive one-on-one wide receiver DB rep. We track it all. So we have win rates. We have field percentage rates. We have hang time on punts and kicks and distance and all those types of things. And based on all the numbers of training camp, he won the job. Now, obviously, it's a lot on his plate. You're talking about all three things. So, we spent a lot of time talking to national kicking gurus of how do you handle that? How do you handle that? How does the practice look? What are the reps that he's taking in practice? What do we need to do to put him in the best position to be successful? So, obviously we won't make that determination off of one game. We got to get those things cleaned up. There's no doubt about it. I'm also very, very proud of him because some guys wouldn't be able to handle that well. That would seep into the kickoff. That would seep into the punting. And the guy was the special teams player of the week in the Big Ten. So I do think he took the right approach. It's going to be something I talked to the team about today in the team meeting. we talk about 6 seconds at a time, being your best one play at a time, and no matter what happens at the end of that play, you move on to the next one, and do it again, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I thought Jordan did a great job of that. So, but that's how we got here. I think Jake Pinniger still has a tremendous future. We're going to need him at some point this year as well. And I know he's approaching it that way.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com, then Audrey Snyder.
By the way, I like this speaker up here. It's much easier to hear, so thank you for the Penn State comm staff.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Ben?
No complaints. I got a two-part question for you. Do you believe in trap games? And I've noticed that your weekly tweet has changed from the name of the team that you're playing to just 1-0 over and over again. Is there a messaging change there? What is sort of the reasoning behind that?
Thank you. Two good questions. So, trap games, yeah, I believe in teams playing inconsistent because they either look forward, look back, get caught up in praise, get caught up in criticism, don't have the correct amount of respect for the opponent or the process. So that's why I think you guys know almost to the point where it's maybe a little crazy. Our routine and our process is really important to me. That's why we won't talk about anything else but the game at hand. As you know, around here, we get a lot of questions about a certain game that we have every year, not about an opponent, but a certain game. We also get a bunch of questions about a certain opponent every year, and I just think those things lead to the wrong approach by a group of young men. So we try to avoid that at all costs. So I guess to answer your question, I do believe in trap games if you're sending mixed messages, if you're inconsistent in your approach, and it's subtle things. It's little subtle things that you say in the press conference that the fans and the players pick up on, that your staff picks up on. It's subtle things about your demeanor and your approach out at practice, whether it's a conference game or out of conference game, whether it's on the road or whatever, ranked opponent or not. It's subtle things that people pick up on. So, I try to, make sure that we don't do that, and that message is consistent. So whether they go down and they're getting gear from our equipment people, that there's no cracks in it. There's consistency. Same thing in the training room. Same thing with our coaches and our staff and so on and so forth. So that's to answer your first question. And then the second question is, really, the message hasn't changed. So in the past, I would say Wisconsin 75 times and then Ball State 75 times, because the message was about our entire focus needs to be on this game, this opponent, and being 1-0. The problem is our Penn State fans understand that. The media understands that. But the opponent that we're playing that maybe follows me for the week doesn't. So they think it's a slight, or they think it's a shot, or they think it's something. So it's really the exact same message. And I never mean to seem disrespectful to an opponent, ever. I have tremendous respect for the University of Wisconsin. I have tremendous respect for Ball State. I got tremendous respect for every opponent, every university on our schedule. So it's more just about, I don't want other people misinterpreting what we're talking about. But again, no matter what you do, people are going to find ways to complain. Now they say, oh, he's already saying they're 1-0 last week. And I wasn't. That wasn't the message. Obviously, I think as the season goes on, it makes a little bit more sense to people. But I'm just trying to find ways to be as concise and as clear with our message, most importantly for our players, our program, and our fans, but also to try to eliminate some of the billboard material or what other people may misinterpret. But the reality is, if you want to find a reason to be angry and be mad, and people are going to find it no matter what you do or say.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic, and then we'll go to Mike Gross.
Hey James, those scheduled tweets can get some people.
Yeah, that was the plan. That was the plan. I was trying to get you.
I wanted to ask you about your left guard, and we saw a lot of Eric Wilson in the second half. Do you feel like you have a solution there, and how did Wilson grade out?
Yeah, we thought Eric played well. We thought Wiggin did some good things too, but we'll decide that this week based on last week's game, which I think your evaluation is fair, and then obviously what we do this week as well. So it'll be a combination of those two things to determine who will start or who will play more on Saturday.
Mike Gross, LMP News, and then we'll go to Donnie Collins.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, thanks.
Mike, are those seashells over your right shoulder?
Yeah,
Where are those seashells from? Is that Jersey Shore? Is that Delaware beaches? Where's that from?
probably Ocean City, Maryland, mostly.
Makes sense.
Although
Love it.
it's a variety of places, maybe.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure about that.
Yeah. But there we go.
In light of the practice limitations, full pad practice limitations that you've already talked about, I thought that on Saturday, the parts of the game that I thought would be hard to drill and get good at, given those limitations, you were pretty good at. I didn't see a lot of missed tackles. Stuff like blitz pickup I thought was good. When they're running back out to the second level, you got him on the ground. So do you agree, and have you figured anything out about how to coach that stuff and drill that stuff to get good at it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, especially early in the season. And obviously the NCAA keeps making changes that we have to adjust to. And you see around college football that can be challenging early on for people. So we made some adjustments during training camp this year that I thought were helpful on defense and on special teams, which I think showed up for us. Whether that's a little bit more live work on special teams, whether that is a little bit more live work when we can based on the rules and practice. We did a little bit more of that, and then we also had a specific drill that we had not really done in the past. We'd done it in individual, but not in a team setting, that we added this year that I thought was really valuable for us. I'm not going to get into specifically what the drill was, because I do think it's something that we're doing that maybe others aren't, the way we're actually implementing it into practice. But I do think your point is a good one. We were able, except for the one, we were able to clean up a lot of the things that you see early in the season in games. Whether it's missed tackles, whether it's substitution issues, whether it's burning timeouts unnecessarily, things like that show up in games early in the season, special teams blunders, things like that. Again, excluding our two missed extra point and field goals. I thought for the most part we did a pretty good job of that. So I appreciate the question and comment, Mike.
Donnie Collins, Times-Tribune, and then Corey Geiger.
Hey James, how are you?
Good. How are you, Donnie?
Doing well. I can imagine this is going to be a similar answer to the
Donnie,
targeting question. Yeah.
did I see all the Yankee stuff?
Yeah, I got some Yankee stuff here.
Did you see my first pitch at Yankee Stadium?
I did.
One of the better opening pitches, that you probably have seen.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's been some bad ones. Yours certainly wasn't one of them.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Donnie.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the personal fouls on the punt coverage. Is that kind of a similar thing to the targeting thing, where it looks to the layperson like he's making a really good play on a kid who didn't call a fair catch, and he doesn't want to let him make a move, but they've called it once, and he did a similar thing the second time. How do you address that with the kid, with the player, and do you feel that's that's something that the conference needs to kind of address, or the NCAA or whoever?
Yeah. I think it's a good question. It's a little bit like, I don't know if you guys saw, I sent it out to the team last week. Tom Brady, it was an interview Tom Brady was doing, talking about that he doesn't necessarily agree with some of the rules now in the NFL on defensive football, where a quarterback would throw the ball over the middle and put the receiver at risk, and then the defensive player gets the penalty, but the quarterback should have never threw and put his receiver at risk in the first place. So it leads to some bad football. And I'd make the argument that that if you want the protection, then you should call for the fair catch. Obviously, there's a fine line to that, because you don't want to put the player at risk, but they have a responsibility to protect themselves as well with the fair catch. The way I felt like the way that rule's been interpreted in the past is you got to give them an opportunity to catch it, and once they catch it, then you can hit them. And I thought it was a bang play. Again, I think it's one of those plays that could be interpreted either way. We're not upset with AJ, because the way we teach it is once the hands go up, we want them to shoot. Obviously, the way it was officiated on Saturday, we've made some adjustments to how we're coaching it, but AJ did it exactly the way we coach it to be done. The second one, he was clearly blocked in the back into the returner, so that's why that flag was picked up. But I think your point is a fair one. Again, if you want the protection after the catch, then you should go fair catch. But a returner should never be hit before the ball gets there. And I thought it was catch hit, which I think is football. But again, I think when you're talking about player safety and protecting the players, and if it's in that gray area, they're probably always going to lean on the side of player safety. So I get that too. And again, it's back to one of those conversations that I think that we have to be careful, or as a defensive player, what are you really supposed to do? Because if he breaks down, lets him catch it, and then the guy goes for 80, then we're screaming at the kid, that he didn't do his job. So it's that fine line in between the two.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports. Then we'll go to New Bias.
The other thing I'd say, Donnie, it's you also see the quarterback running out of bounds, but then right before he turns out of bounds, he sticks his foot in the ground and runs over the defensive player. But if the defensive player hit him right there, they'd probably call him. So it's just it's a tough spot that we're in football, and I think right now the approach and the mentality is do everything we possibly can for player safety, but it puts the defensive guys in a tough position as well, because if you go in and you're hesitant, then you're putting the defensive guys at risk too. And that's coming from a guy with an offensive background.
Corey?
James, good afternoon.
Hey, Corey.
Along those lines, then, do you believe that targeting should lead to an automatic ejection, or would you like to see that modified somehow?
Yeah, there was a bunch of discussions about that in the offseason, and I think what they did is they actually did do that like a year ago, correct? Where the replay official can overturn that. So I think that's already really happened. It's not an automatic disqualification. The replay guy can take that off. So I do think your point is a fair one, that there's different types of targeting. But I do think they've done some pretty good jobs allowing the replay official to either put it on or take it off, and that wasn't the case when we first put the rule in.
New Bias Wilborn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and then we'll go to Rich Scarcella.
Good afternoon, James. Hope you're doing well today, brother.
You as well, New Bias.
Man, blessed and highly favored, man. From there, we talked to Noah Kane earlier. He mentioned how he had an opportunity to work out with Ezekiel Elliott, but missed it to take a Spanish test. One, what does it say about him? And two, for you, who is the coolest athlete you've ever worked out with?
Well, first of all, yeah, Noah's been a model Penn State student athlete since he's arrived on campus. He's crushed it in the classroom, really is doing extremely well in the classroom. I think he's got a chance to get a master's degree, while he's here at Penn State if he chooses to do that, which I hope he does. And I love the fact, that he had an opportunity to work out with somebody like that. He's got a lot of respect for Ezekiel, and so do I. But in terms of who I got to work out with, I actually got a pretty cool picture that I think we posted a few years ago when I was in high school. Ron Jaworski had a training facility by my house, and there's a picture of me and I'm holding a football and Ron Jaworski kind of coaching me up on this clinic he had at this workout facility by my house. And obviously, growing up where I grew up in the Eagles and all those types of things. So that's probably the most impressive guy that I got a chance to work out with as a player, which is pretty cool. And Ron's still doing great things in the Philadelphia area, for the city, for the community, which is great to see.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then Joe Giuliano.
Hi, James.
Hey, Rich. Rich, what's that trophy for?
Which one?
The one right over your right shoulder.
From high school.
You?
It's from a basketball championship.
Awesome. Love it.
All right. Jair Brown, what did you see in him when you recruited him? What did he do in camp to win the job, and how good can he be?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me right away when I recruited Tig is, and you guys will get to know him, he's just an awesome kid. He's always got a smile on his face. He's super appreciative of his time here, very proud of his time at Lackawanna, but also very appreciative of what he has here at Penn State. His mom is great. I remember going on the home visit. We went to a soul food restaurant in Trenton, New Jersey, not far from where my dad worked growing up. And one of the things that stood out to me that I think is telling is how many family members were there, how many people from the community were there. His high school coach, his Pop Warner coach were all there, and they just all love Tig. And that's the type of guy he is. You love to coach him. He's got a really good way about him to be one of the guys with his teammates, but also has a really good way, a respectful, a coachable, a fun way to be around coaches and adults as well. And I just, see him getting better. He was a guy when we recruited him, Lackawanna had played him at corner, so you saw him, I think, at corner his first year and a little bit at safety, almost / outside linebacker second year. So he had a lot of traits. And then what I love about, Tig, as well as a bunch of guys, is he came to camp. He came to camp and earned it. So I love that as well, guys that aren't afraid to compete, and he came here and earned it, and was under-recruited out of high school for a number of reasons. But his junior college coach, Mark Duda, and Coach Pardini and those guys there, they just spoke the world about his character and the type of football player he is, and that's really who he's been. And I think there's still a lot left in the tank for him. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. You saw a few flashes of it last year. I think you'll see even more of it this year, as the year goes on. So I'm really proud of him. I'm really excited about him. I'm glad he's on our team. And I think you guys, you and the fans will really enjoy getting to know him because he's a special young man, and his mom did a great job raising him.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer, and then Travis Johnson.
Hello, James.
Hey, Joe.
You talked after the game about, how Sean rallied the offense in the second half, and I just wondered, how have you seen him improve in terms of his preparation, his focus, and his attention to detail with the revamped offense?
Yeah, I think he's always really prepared well. I think that's always been a strength of his, kind of understanding what you have to do at this level and the next to be successful. He's always done a good job of that. Obviously, you get better at it every year. You tweak some things. And, obviously with his academic schedule, he's able to spend a lot of time in the facility on his own watching tape, so that helps too. But I also think the success he's had has built confidence. I think the challenges and the adversity he's had has built thick skin, which I think is valuable too. And I don't think anybody would question his toughness, based on this past game as well as last year. So I'm just, I'm really proud of him. I think you'll see him grow in comfort as the year goes on with the offense. And what it's about, it's not just knowing the plays and knowing the defense. It's what are your answers? And if they bring this pressure, what's the adjustment to the protection, or where are my relief throws or hots, or so on and so forth. And I think that's where it really becomes powerful, as a quarterback, is when you feel like the defense can't be right because you have the answers. Here's my man beater, here's my zone beater, here's my my pressure answer, whether it's adjusting a protection or a hot throw or whatever it may be, or checking the play. And that's where I think you got a chance to be really good on offense, is when the offensive players, specifically the quarterback, feel like you really can't be right on defense because, we hold the chalk last on offense, and you have the opportunity to make the adjustments. And that's about anticipation, right? Anticipation, everybody talks about the quarterback position, is because pre-snap, based on your film study and your experience, you got a pretty good understanding of what's coming. 70% of the time you should know what's going to happen before the ball snapped, and now 70 to 80%, and now you're just confirming it at the snap. It is what I thought it was going to be. And when you're able to do that at a high level, 70, 80, 90% of the time, you got a chance to be really successful in offense, and specifically at the quarterback position.
Looks like Travis had to jump off, so we'll go with John Sauber, and then we will go to John Petishnock. John?
Hi, James. Thanks for your time.
Hey, John.
Not counting sacks, Sean had 4 carries for 18 yards on Saturday, and he was kind of more selective about taking off on passing plays in general. How do you balance that and taking advantage of his ability to run with the ball and the athleticism he has?
Yeah, I think your point is a good one in terms of his athleticism. He's a better athlete than I think people realize, and he's shown that in flashes over his career. I think the biggest thing, and Mike's done a good job of this, is, make sure that you're going through your progressions, and not, going progression 1, progression 2 run. Make sure you're going progression 1, progression 2, progression 3, step up in the pocket, climb in the pocket, and hit a check down, or keep your momentum going and stay on the move and go get us some positive yardage. That's what you want to see at your quarterback position. A guy that can take a negative 6-yard sack and turn it into an escape, buy time, get a big throw down the sideline, or again, get us some positive yards with your feet. And that could be to stay on schedule, or that could be to create an explosive play. The biggest thing you don't want to do is you don't want to wait on routes to come open. You want to go through your progression. You want to be decisive. And then you want to climb in the pocket. And if an outlet is there for you, or a dig route is coming into your vision, or an OTB or whatever it may be, then great. But if not, stay on the move and go get us some positive yards. If it's a 2-minute situation, understand that the throwaway is probably more valuable than the lateral scramble. In a 2-minute situation, you want to be able to get the ball out of your hands quickly. You want to climb in the pocket, and take a check down or scramble for positive yards. But lateral scrambles in a 2-minute situation, you have to be careful because it puts the ball at risk and burns more time off the clock. A lot of times you'll see a quarterback scramble and run around and then run out of bounds, and he gained 1.5 yards or 2 yards, or maybe lost 1 yard, and 11 seconds came off the clock. It's not worth it.
John Petishnock, the football letter, and then we'll go to Nate Bauer.
Hey, good afternoon, James. How are you doing today?
Good, John. You?
I'm doing well. Hey, after the game Saturday, you showed a lot of emotion, particularly with the fans and the families who traveled there. I just wanted to ask, how big of a role does emotion play in your coaching approach, and especially in connecting with fans and players, and also with players' families?
Yeah, I think it's a huge part of my leadership style with our players and how we meet, how we lead, how we bond as coaches and players. I think it's a big part. It's my personality, it's my style, and I have to be authentic and true to who I am in my leadership role. But also specifically with our families. When you look at Jahan Dotson and the recruiting process and getting to know his family well and understanding, the success and challenges and adversity that we all go through in our families and being a part of that, is meaningful to me and is important to me. That's, past players. I got a text message from Trace McSorley this morning. And then that's the fans that I don't get to know as well, but there's some that I do. The gentleman with the white fedora on Saturday, I don't know him very well, but I see him at all the games. I feel his passion. I appreciate his passion. He's also handsomely dressed, usually, and I appreciate all those things. So when there's an opportunity to connect and show my passion and my appreciation for them as well, because they're a part of our family and part of our process, I want them to feel that as well.
We'll go 2 more questions. Nate Bauer, Blue White Illustrated, and then Tyler Donahue.
Hey, James, how are you?
Appreciate it, Nate. I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm good, always. Hey, Ellis Brooks, what kind of evolution and development have you seen from him through his Penn State career? And then I guess specifically at that position, what's the value of having the experience that he has?
Yeah, I thought he played his best game, or at least half that he's had at Penn State. I think the experience at the middle linebacker position, the quarterback of your defense, is very similar to experience at the quarterback position on offense. In terms of the confidence that you have to run the defense, there's a lot of checks and thinking that go into it, especially with formations and shifts and motions and everything that we try to do and getting everybody on the same page. So there's a lot of value in that. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And then there's also just, the leadership experience as well. He said something to the team the other day, and I wish our young players would understand this. And the hard part is sometimes they just have to go through it themselves. But it's amazing how many of the vets get up and talk about appreciating their time here. Everybody's trying to rush to the next stage. And a lot of them late in their careers admit that they had already made up at some point during their career that this was going to be their last year at Penn State and they were going to the NFL before their eligibility was up, and how, looking back at that now, that wasn't the right approach. And Ellis, talked about that with the team in his share the other night at the hotel. So he's just in a really good place. I think his mom and dad are in a really good place about his Penn State experience. I think Ellis is in a really good place about his Penn State experience and where he's at. He's super confident right now, and I think you see a lot of our players confident is really high. And why? Because I think Ellis is really invested into this Penn State football team. I think his preparation level is through the roof, not only this year, but what he's been able to do over his time here at Penn State. And all those things are coming, to fruition right now. So, we'll obviously miss him in the first half, but he'll come out like gangbusters in the second half. I'll never forget, I was the offensive coordinator at Maryland, and we had a player that I suspended for the first half of the game in a bowl game. And he didn't play in the first half, and we were playing Boise State. He showed me, and the second half, he had an unbelievable game, came out like gangbusters in the second half, and was actually the MVP of the bowl game. So I think based on my previous experience, I think Ellis will have a similar second half, and I think he'll have a really dominant season, and I think he'll learn from that. It's not worth throwing shoulders, and we want to wrap up and use fundamental tackles whenever possible.
Last question to Tyler Donahue, Lions 247.
Hey, James, hope you're well.
You as well, Tyler.
Thank you. A few guys that we didn't see on your travel roster that stood out. Keaton Ellis, Hakeem Beeman, and John Lovett. Are you able to give any clarification on their availability moving forward for you?
Yes, they were not available last week, and that will be to be determined this week.
Thank you very much, Coach.